All right, let's talk about it. You want to go from zero to your first $10,000 in investments, but you're starting from scratch. Perfect. That's exactly what we're breaking down today, a simple, step-by-step game plan for 2026, built for someone who's brand new to all of this. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to build a rock-solid financial foundation. Then we'll get into how you can start small, literally with just a few bucks. After that, we'll figure out how to pick the right goals and accounts, decide what to actually invest in, and wrap it all up with the most important piece of the puzzle, the investor's mindset. Okay, I know you're probably eager to jump right in, but believe it or not, the very first step to investing is not investing. I know, but before a single dollar goes into the market, we have got to build a solid base. This is what's going to protect you when life throws a curveball so you're not forced to sell your investments at the absolute worst time. Think of it like a financial shock absorber, and you'd be surprised how many people are driving without one. A recent Bankrate survey found that a staggering 18% of Americans had zero emergency savings at the start of the year, and still don't. Trying to invest without that safety net, it's like building a house on sand. It's just not going to work out well. And this really gets to the heart of it. Long-term wealth building absolutely depends on having short-term stability. As Ramsey Solutions puts it, a secure foundation is totally non-negotiable. So the big takeaway is that investing comes after you've built this buffer for yourself. So what does that path look like? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. You just tackle these 3 steps in order. Step 1, just focus on getting a quick $1,000 saved up. That's your starter emergency fund. Then step 2, you aggressively attack all your consumer debt. We're talking credit cards, car loans, all of it. Finally, step 3, you build up that emergency fund to cover 3 to 6 months of your essential expenses. Once that's done, you are truly ready to start investing. Okay, with that boring but super important stuff out of the way, now the exciting part can begin. Let's talk about the tools that have completely changed the game, making investing accessible to literally everyone, no matter how much money you have to start with. This is hands down the #1 question beginners have. And for a long time, the answer was, well, it's kind of tough. But technology has totally flipped the script. You just don't need a huge pile of cash to get in the game anymore. The magic behind this is something called fractional shares. What does that mean? Well, instead of needing, say, $500 to buy one share of a big popular company, you can now buy a tiny piece of that exact same share for as little as $1. It means you can own a slice of the companies you know and love with whatever cash you happen to have. So how do you actually do this? Well, a whole wave of these micro-investing apps have made it incredibly easy. You've probably heard of them. Platforms like Robinhood, Public, and SoFi Invest are all designed for beginners. The best part? Most of them have 0 commissions on trades, and they let you get started with just a few bucks. All right, so we're shifting gears a little bit here. We've moved from the mechanics of how you invest, and now we're going to get into the strategy of why you're investing. Honestly, giving your money a specific job to do is the secret to making really smart decisions. Just like the Smart Investor Guide points out, you have to get crystal clear on what this money is supposed to do for you. Are you saving for retirement way down the road? Or are you saving for a down payment on a house in maybe 5 years? Your timeline and your goal, those 2 things are going to dictate every single choice you make from here on out. And if you have a big long-term goal like retirement, using a special account that gives you some awesome tax breaks is a super smart move. One of the most popular ones for beginners is the Roth IRA, mainly because your money can grow and then in retirement, you can pull it out completely tax-free. Yeah, that's a huge deal. And get this, the government is actually encouraging us to save more. According to Fidelity, for 2026, the IRS has bumped up the maximum amount you can put into a Roth IRA to $7,500 if you're under 50. That's a pretty significant boost to help you build up that nest egg even faster. All right, you've got your foundation, you've got your app, you've got your account. Now for the $1,000,000 question. What do you actually buy? The most important idea here is called diversification, which is just a fancy way of saying don't put all your eggs in one basket. For most people starting out, a simple, balanced mix is the best way to go. A classic beginner portfolio might look something like this. You can think of stocks as your engine for growth. Bonds, on the other hand, provide stability and income. They're like a cushion for when the stock market gets a little bumpy. And then a small slice in alternatives can add another layer of diversification. So, how would you fill up those buckets? Well, looking ahead to 2026, big firms like JP Morgan are feeling pretty good about global stocks. For the bond part of your portfolio, Vanguard has pointed out that high-quality U.S. bonds are offering some really attractive returns right now. And for that alternative slice, you could even consider something like a Bitcoin ETF, which gives you exposure to the crypto market without all the complexity of owning it directly. We've covered all the practical, step-by-step stuff. But honestly, none of it matters without the right mindset. The tools are great, the strategy is important, but it's your behavior and your discipline that will ultimately decide whether you succeed as an investor. One of the fundamental choices you have to make is your time horizon. And as this shows, trying to be a short-term trader, well, it can be a really high-stress, high-fee game. For beginners, a long-term holding strategy, sometimes called hodling, is almost always more effective. Sure, it takes patience, but it's way less stressful, and it lets the magic of compounding do its thing over time. And finally, let's talk about what not to do. Learning from other people's mistakes is a huge shortcut. So here are the 3 golden rules for beginners. 1. Don't just buy something because you saw it being hyped up on social media. 2. Never, ever, ever invest money you cannot afford to lose. And 3. Don't ignore security. Protect your account. So there you have it. That's the complete roadmap for 2026. You know how to build your foundation, start small with the right tools, define your goals, create a simple portfolio, and, most importantly, cultivate that long-term mindset. The only question left is, which of these first steps are you going to take today?